to our second live video in our series all about our 5 years of cruising. Today we're going to be talking about both of our ocean crossings, our Atlantic crossings, how they differed from each other, what we learned from them, and what we learned from the first one and implemented in the second one, and just how to cross an ocean. There we go. We're going to be referring to our phones. Herbie's got kind of our order of topics, and I've got our chat, our live chat. So we'll be looking at those, and hopefully you guys will participate in the conversation in the live chat down below. We'll do our best to follow along with that. But sometimes we get distracted and forget. So
yes. And if you guys have questions, let us know. We'll see them on that phone there.
Yes.
Quite.
And we have a lot to cover today. This is a really, really big topic. The Atlantic is a big place.
And we also want to make it so that people in the future, when they watch the live video no longer live, that it's not just us rambling and answering stuff and going on completely different tangents and all. So we're trying to like keep to the topic and and make it a good video again. So you're welcome. We tried. Yeah.
With that being said, just to introduce, if you weren't with us for our Atlantic crossings, the first one we did was back in 2018. We crossed from the Bahamas to Bermuda and then to the Azores.
Oh, I can also just show them a little picture.
Yeah, go ahead.
In case you haven't followed, that's what we did. We went down, went over, and then came back.
Our second Atlantic crossing was from Cape Verde to Suriname, South America.
That one's not the common route.
Yeah, a little bit less of a common route, but highly recommended.
Oh, Suriname was awesome.
So two very different crossings with very different conditions at very different times of year, and we're going to talk about how we chose the times of year. And
so well, a big thing, like a lot of times people will look up and they're like, hey, when do I cross the Atlantic? It's like, are you going, east to west or west to east? Because they're completely different crossings. So when you cross from the US to Europe, so you're going west to east, you want to do that in the late spring, early summer, roughly. But, with climate change and stuff, it waits. Yeah, what you want to do is there's certain weather patterns and you wait for them to happen, and when they happen, then you're good to go. If they haven't happened yet, keep waiting. So the traditional time to go is like late April, early May, and we crossed in mid-June because that's when the weather finally was correct to cross.
Yeah, I mean, what you're looking for specifically is for the Azores high to form.
Yeah.
Which is a high pressure system that makes a giant circle basically in the middle of the Atlantic. And when that forms, when you see that weather pattern happening, it's time to go, and you know that you can ride kind of the arc of that high pressure system.
Now, speaking of arc, we didn't do the arc, and I don't really recommend doing the arc because when we were in the Azores, I've been looking at the weather because we're gonna continue and sail on to Portugal, and I was looking. I'm like, wow, I wonder when they're gonna leave because the weather is still horrible out there. Like no one should be crossing the ocean yet. And later that day, the arc rolled in, and they all arrived. They had all these like tales of the gales they were in. It's like, did you guys just pay a lot of money to have a weather routing guy? Have you not have horrible weather?
The problem with the arc is that it's scheduled.
Yeah, they have a timeline.
They have a timeline, they have a schedule, they leave at a certain time. Whether that high pressure system is formed or not, they're going. So we recommend doing your own weather routing, and we'll tell you a little bit about how we did that.
Yeah, so a big nugget for when to leave the US to sail to Europe is there's these gales that form, and they form on a 4-day cycle. So they form and they fly across the Atlantic and smash into England and stuff, and they go every 4 days. So you watch them. One goes day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. A gale hasn't happened on day 5. Start getting your boat ready. There might be a late one that comes along on like day 6 or 7, and you're not ready yet. You didn't leave yet, thankfully, and that's fine. It goes, but now your boat's ready. And then day 1, 2, 3, 4, no gale on day 5, like you're probably good to go. And it's just after the last gale goes and there isn't the next one on the 4th day, the gills are pretty much done for the summer, and you'll probably have pretty good weather. It won't be as bad as if you left too early and every 4 days gets smashed by a gale. So
yes, so no arc. We did it on our own, just the two of us, no crew. We did have crew from the Bahamas to Bermuda, and we dropped him off in Bermuda and did the rest on our own. And that's a whole different tale for a whole different day. But we were much happier when it was just the two of us.
Yeah. Now, coming back, it's the opposite. You don't go in the spring, you go in the winter. So the ideal time to do it is November-ish. We didn't do that. So the ideal time is after the last hurricane goes across the Atlantic, then you come along in the wake of calmness. And it's a nice, easy milk run, and down you go. Now, the problem with that is everyone leaves from, the Canary Islands or Gibraltar even. And in November, when you get into the winter, then you get a system where it's a cyclical system. It's several days of blowing north and then several days of blowing south along the African coast. So if you are trying to come south and you get hit by, about 4 days of a a south wind blowing you up, you're tacking and you're beating, and that just sucks. Like, you never want to go upwind in the ocean. It's too big a water. Like, just go the downwind route because it's so much easier. So the problem is you need to get down there before that happens. So you have to get to Cape Verde like September, which is hurricane season. Now, hurricanes, they come off of Africa as a low pressure system. They're the monsoons coming off. They cross Cape Verde, and then shortly thereafter, they turn into tropical storms and hurricanes. So if you're like at the Cape Verde area, you're just going to see a tropical depression or a tropical low, which is so much less bad than a hurricane, but still not fun. But anyway, you cross through those, and then you go after the hurricanes are done, and then you're safe. Now, we wanted to have Christmas in the Caribbean. So we couldn't be crossing in November, which takes about a month, and then also get to, the Caribbean by Christmas.
The problem was we weren't headed to the Caribbean.
Yeah.
We were headed to South America. So it was a very different route. Everyone does the milk run. They call it the milk run because you literally just go with the trades. You end up in St. Lucia or wherever you choose to end up.
St. Lucia.
But it's St. Lucia.
Yeah.
And you barely have to touch anything. You just, the trade winds just take you the whole way. That was not our experience at all. We knew that in the beginning. We knew it was not going to be our experience. And
so we went in October, which is hurricane season, like just after the peak of hurricane season, but still well into hurricane season. And
we did not get caught in a hurricane. Spoiler alert.
So what we did, hurricanes historically have never gone south of 9 degrees north. So we crossed at 5 degrees north because that's, I think math right now. It's about 200 and some miles, well, it's 60 degrees per mile and 4 degrees, 240 miles that we are south of the lowest hurricane eye. So I'm like, if there is a hurricane, we'll see it on the horizon from far away, and we'll know it's coming, and we'll just head further south and hide from the thing. And we had no hurricanes that we know of, because we didn't see any hurricanes while we were out there. We also don't receive weather information, and we'll get to that in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
But so it was just, we were tracking down super south. I was worried about running into the doldrums, the ITCZ, or ICTZ, Intertropical Continental Zone, or something like that. There's no wind in that area, and I was worried that we'd get caught there and then stuck. And we did not. We had really, really good wind all the way across.
It was spirited, to say the least. Much more spirited than our cross over to Europe.
Yeah. Also, being that far south, the world is a lot bigger, so it took a lot more time to go across. It was 2,600 miles. We're going over was 1,800.
Right. Now, route planning for an Atlantic crossing is simply looking at history. It's really best to have pilot charts and to look at those before you leave and use those to determine weather patterns and route, just like to decide what your route's going to be, because crossing an ocean is not just going straight from point A to point B. There's a lot of variation that happens. And that inclination to go straight is what people tend to do when they have diesel motors, and they tend to have a really rough time of it, or hit doldrums. So if you're planning to actually sail across the Atlantic, it's really important to plan your route ahead of time and know that you're going to be doing a lot more miles than you think.
Yeah. So pilot charts are just an average of what the wind is for, and it's split up for every 5 degree by 5 degree square. So, and per month. So it's important, look at the month before, your current month, and the month ahead. Because averages, you might get next month's weather today, is pretty much the thing. So we plan the way that it'll be the downwind route most of the time, the whole way across. Mm-hmm. So it's, like she said, it's not the short way, it's you go around some crazy stuff. Like from Azores to Portugal, everyone cuts the 800-mile run straight across the high, and then gets smashed by trade winds and a horrible current and the crap beat out of them in their boat. We didn't have that because we sailed 1,800 miles to go up near England and then drop down with the trade winds. So that's a thing. But yeah, it's really important, know your history, and if you look up the old, sadly, the slave ship route, they had to get cargo across the Atlantic as quickly and safely as possible. So if you look up the routes that they took, that tells you right there, dudes who had no motor and could not sail upwind, how did they go? You go that way, and go when they did, or when their deliveries made it, because they didn't sink, because they didn't have pilot charts back then. So yeah, so that's going over. Coming back, it's just, oh my god, it's so easy. You just, it's like hundreds of miles. You could be north or south, and it's all blowing the same direction. So.
As long as you go at the right time of year.
Yeah. Sure. Now, as far as the, okay. Next thing. I am staying on topic today.
So we want to talk about major differences between our two ocean crossings, and there were a lot of differences. Some of that was just circumstances because it's two very different routes. It's two very different parts of the earth. And some of that was things we learned the second time around, gear that we had that we didn't have before. So one major difference between the two was that the first one, the one from Bermuda to the Azores, was just a lot calmer and a lot slower. That is just due to the nature of that crossing, I think.
Well, also I picked the weather.
Yes.
So going over, you ride the outside of the Azores high. So you can go a little more south into the high, and then the wind is less, and you can go a little more north away from the high into the low that's north of you, and then your wind picks up. So you can literally pick your weather. So we picked the weather where it was smooth sailing, we were playing cards in the cockpit, we're eating, we're just so nice.
It was nice, but it was very slow. It
Yeah.
took us 26 days.
Yeah, we did 80 miles a day, we got becalmed for 4, and drifted backwards. Fun.
So, and being becalmed in the ocean can be
beautiful.
A really beautiful experience or a really frustrating experience. By day 4, we were done with it, but it was also a really nice respite. We were able to cook, we were straight up and down, we saw gorgeous, gorgeous sunsets and vistas.
So
the water
beautiful.
was like glass, these kinds of things. You just have to sit back and just enjoy the wonders of the planet that we live on, because it's just so incredible. Okay. And so, so we did have a slower, even though it was a much smaller trip, lengthwise and mile-wise, it took us almost the same exact time to do both crossings, just because we had so little wind on the first crossing, and we were using a barometer to determine where to be in the first crossing.
Yeah, so going over, what you want to do is, well, what I like to do is you follow the 1,020 millibar line. So you get your barometer, and it's got that little red one, so you can put what was the last weather, so you can track changes. Forget that. Set it on 1020, and then that is your new compass. So if you are sailing along and the pressure is lower than 1020, sail south, go towards the high, and then the air pressure is going to come back up. And then if you're too far south and your air pressure is higher than 1020, go more north, go towards the low, and the barometer comes back up. And that's it. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, so we ended up going pretty north. But we had some friends that were also making the crossing at the same time, and they went way far up.
Well, they were following predict wind.
They were following predict wind, and we had very different weather. They had a much rougher go, and we were happy, and they were not.
Yeah.
So that's a testament to the barometer.
Yeah. Now the standard is you leave Bermuda, you sail north to 40 degrees, like 40 north, and then you turn and just go due east.
Mm-hmm.
That's great, but I mean, you don't have to. You can just follow the barometer and have a much happier time at it.
We got a question from Gigi Kingsland saying, from Bahamas to Bermuda, did you have unusual weather instead of what you were expecting? The answer is yes. And that we actually selfishly blame on our crew that we had going from Bahamas to Bermuda. This was one of the problems that we ran into with him. He had a schedule to keep, and he wanted us to leave on a certain date. And the weather had not changed correctly yet to go, and so we knew it was going to be a terrible go.
There was no wind, so we talked about, because he said that either we leave now or he's gonna fly back to Germany or Spain, and we're like, crap, like our parents really want us to have crew, friends want us to have crew, they don't want us to go alone in case something happened to one of us. So we're like, all right, so we talked about it, we're like, well, if we leave now, we're not gonna go anywhere, we're just gonna sit and bob. And he can't leave us. That'll be great.
It ended up being horrible. It took us, I mean, that's a week journey from Bahamas to Bermuda. It should be a week.
Yeah.
It took us 21 days. It literally took us 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It was horrible. So we were all really upset. We all hated each other at the end.
We were averaging 20 miles per day. So we're doing less than a knot all day long.
Yeah.
It was so bad.
So that was terrible. And the weather, I mean, so actually we did have the weather that we expected.
Sure.
But it was not good. And really bad. So good question.
Do wait for the correct weather and don't have crew, that way you guys have your own schedule and aren't being pushed to other people's schedules.
Exactly. So a major difference, one thing that probably the biggest thing we learned between the two ocean crossings was provisioning. Your first ocean crossing ever, you're just going to over provision. It can't be helped. Yeah, you're panicking.
This is my last grocery store for a month. I'm buying everything.
You're panicking. You're going nuts. One, I'll say, without going too far into the provisioning thing, one thing that we learned that was really great was vacuum packing meats.
Yes.
Was a really wonderful thing, because a hot meal out in the middle of the ocean is really all you need to be happy. So we had meat all the way across, which was fantastic. One thing you don't have all the way across is vegetables. So only get the amount of vegetables you need for 1 week. Because
not that you need.
Well, you'll eat.
You can eat in a week, because they will go bad.
They will go bad.
And then you're gonna throw them overboard and
you'll be really sad.
Yeah.
So when you're provisioning, just think about the vegetables and fruits that you will eat in a week.
And be honest, you're not going to eat that many salads when you're out there. So don't buy so much lettuce. I was like, we're going to have salads at every meal. We're going to be healthy. And then we just throw the lettuce at it.
Yeah, it was really sad. And a waste. But when you're packing your fruits and vegetables, you just want to make sure that you're packing stone fruits together and
citrus separate. So don't put apples and oranges together. It's bad.
And if you want
a lot of them quickly.
If you want your bananas to not go rotten all on the same day, separate your bananas.
Yeah, then they'll go rotten on slightly different days, but you're still gonna have the banana days. Which, if you like banana, is great.
Now your body's still gonna be craving vegetables like when you're 3 weeks in, if it does take you that long. So you want to make sure you take canned vegetables, like canned spinach will suddenly become really enticing to you. Yeah. There's like a day when you're just like, all of a sudden I want that canned spinach.
And you're just so excited for it.
Your body's craving what you need.
Yeah, it's like, this is the closest thing to spinach. Feed me.
So lots of canned foods. and rice and pasta, carbs basically, and meat when you're provisioning. And so the second time around, we provisioned like just the right amount. And you do want to over provision a little bit because you never know if you're going to get caught in the doldrums or something's going to happen. But
or they tell you have to wait 10 days.
Rather than over provisioning fresh food,
yeah, pasta.
Over provision things like pasta, rice, beans, and lots of beans.
We bought
beans for days.
I think it was like 30 kilos of pasta.
Yeah.
So that's like 66 pounds of pasta that we got.
I won't even mention Spam.
Oh, well.
I mentioned it.
Yeah, it's delicious.
It happened.
It's so good. Spam is the best. Okay, so second difference with the coming back weather-wise. So we talked about barometer on the way over. Coming back, forget the barometer. It doesn't matter. It's blowing everywhere all the time. So it's pretty much if you want more wind, it's going to happen. All you're really doing is just dodging squalls. So you'll see them coming from behind you. They're always coming from your stern. You don't need to worry about the other stuff. So just look back. If you see a squall, head towards the equator. Honestly, because it's probably going to track north. So if you turn north, it's going to follow you. So just go towards the equator. That's really it. And then squall passes, go back north again. And if you get too far south and hit a countercurrent like we did, go back north again. That's it.
The second crossing was much more spirited than the first.
Yes.
We had lots of wind the whole way. It took us 28 days to get from Cape Verde to Suriname. And we were like tuckered out. We were worn out. We flew our storm sail for a lot of it. We were really physically and mentally exhausted by the end of the second crossing. It was a very different experience.
Yeah, so it was nice.
Somebody liked it more than the other person. I don't know if you can figure out who.
Okay, so other differences. Do we talk about the equipment used? Or is that
We will.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. I'm staying on schedule for topic here. It's coming.
So we had a very big difference in mental states between the first one and the second one. A lot of that was due to seasickness and just general length of the journey, and the boat was much more heeled over on the second one, and that makes a really big difference actually for your mental state. when the boat is on its side, everything is just a little bit harder to do. Cooking is harder.
Well, also, when you spend like a week and a half on one tack, and then you jibe, your whole world is like.
And it's very odd.
So disorienting. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Okay. When do we talk about?
So
other stuff?
we want to talk about
There it is. Okay.
just more generally the joys and challenges of crossing an ocean. Before we get, so what we're going to do is talk about all the gear that we had and what we really believe you need to cross the Atlantic. But first we want to just talk about crossing the Atlantic in general and like what that's like and the really hard things about it and the really exciting reasons to do it.
Yes. Can I say one difference in mental state that I had?
Yes.
The first crossing, I was scared out of my mind to leave the coast. I was like, what are we doing? It's a long ocean out there. And I was quite scared. And she was a huge instrumental factor in pushing me and being like, let's go. Ciao. So that was the first one. Coming back, I was like, we'll get the boat finished getting ready on the way. It's fine.
Well, and that actually is probably one of the biggest challenges of crossing an ocean is leaving. Because pushing off that, whatever you're pushing off of, the anchor, the pier, that's the hardest part, is just saying, all right,
here we
go. For the next 20 some days, I'm not going to see land and I'm going to end up on another side of the world.
Where they speak a different language.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And that is a really scary thing. It's a very nerve-wracking thing the first time you do it because you don't know what to expect. You don't know how you're going to take it mentally or physically. And I will say, mentally, it's hard. It's hard to be
It's very hard.
out there for 3 weeks and not have contact with other people.
Oh, that part was nice.
Well, yeah. For someone like me, that was really hard.
In case you didn't know, introvert, extrovert. Alright, so
joys, we like to start with the joys, even though I just said the biggest challenge. Joys are just the connection you feel with nature when you're out there is like none other. You have the wildlife. We saw whales, dolphins, jellyfish, bioluminescence, which is its own category.
It's amazing. So awesome.
Yeah, it's just you're so one with everything around you. Flying fish. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you'll smell weather approaching. Like storms have like a burnt smell on the air. But it's like, so you're just out there, you're like, squall's coming. It's awesome.
Yeah, you feel this beautiful connection, and at night the stars are just
so good.
They make you just you don't even like comprehend what's happening around you. The world just seems so vast and big and just amazing. You're on this disc.
For you, it felt vast and big and amazing. For me, it made the world feel so tiny. Like we were just alone and not moving and just completely stationary, and weather and waves would just happen around us. That's
what you felt like.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It was just so cool. It's just like you're just like chilling with the clouds and like, hey, what's up, Paul? And Paul's just going along. Paul's gonna start peeing now. Oh, let's go away from Paul. So yeah, it was awesome out there.
We used the stars as a comfort a lot too, just because it made you feel a little bit less alone.
Also navigation.
Yes.
So Bermuda Triangle stuff. Yes, your compass will go screwy. And we weren't in the Bermuda Triangle when this one time happened, where the compass literally just turned 90 degrees. And had I been following the compass, I would have turned and we would have been heading due south for who knows how long, which would put us way off course. But instead, I saw the compass turn and the moon was rising ahead of us and the sun was setting at the time. And I'm like, wait a second. The moon rises in the east and the sun sets in the west. I don't care what the compass card says. I'm following those celestial bodies. And a couple hours later, like the compass went, and went back. So that was interesting.
Crazy. Yeah. You just get this overwhelming feeling of independence and pride when you cross an ocean, and when it's just the two of you. And you establish this routine of teamwork. That will only make you stronger. If you're doing it with friends, you'll form incredible bonds out there. If you're doing it with your partner, it's unreal. Like you just become one person basically, and all of your
you'll even wear the same color shirt in live videos.
All of your decisions are made together, and you trust each other implicitly because you have to. And it's a really special thing.
It's great
to experience.
Another thing with the moon. When have you ever seen every single phase of the moon? Like in order, the whole cycle.
Yeah.
Like when you're in the ocean, you will see it.
And you'll pay attention to it because you'll be so bored.
Yeah. You're like, whoa, quarter
Yeah. So I mean, there's so many pros to crossing an ocean. It's just a really incredible experience that so few people have. But the funny thing is when you get to the other side, you're like, I just did this incredible thing that no one's done. And then everybody else over there has been like, me too.
Yeah, I just rolled in as well.
So it's funny, but it does form this bond between you and the other sailors who have done it.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
It's awesome.
Challenges. The biggest challenge for me personally was seasickness, as you guys all know, and I won't go into it too much, but seasickness just completely affected how much I enjoyed both ocean crossings. I had it a lot less on the first one. The second one, since it was so spirited and we were heeled over and there were a lot bigger waves the whole way, I really did suffer pretty much the whole time. For 14 days straight, I was throwing up.
So she enjoyed her seasickness the first time, and you suffered your seasickness the second?
No. I didn't have that much seasickness the first time. So that was a huge challenge, and I tried all kinds of things. Nobody tell me about that earplug thing, please.
Oh, yeah. We've heard it so many times.
times.
Earplug, the glasses, eye patch.
Yes.
I don't know. Hold your nose, pick your nose, scratch your armpit, like all those. Okay. Another challenge was the sleep schedule, which everyone, in case you missed the last slide video, man, stand up and turn sideways.
Oh.
Yes.
Yes, here we are.
Yes, the baby. So, apparently...
Sleep schedule is about to be a thing again.
Yeah, everyone's like, when we told them what the sleep schedule was on the ocean, like, oh, that's just like having a kid. I'm like, oh, crap. But, so, the sleep schedule part, where you don't sleep, so you sleep in shifts. So, we did 3 or 4 hour watches. Depending what the person on watch was able to keep doing while falling asleep. So sometimes they were even shorter than that. Then other times, like, you're just all this energy and you're like, I'm gonna do 8 hour watch, and then the other person gets to sleep for 8 hours. So
yes, I tried the relief band.
all of them.
She's done just like assume that I've tried everything.
Yeah, the beans, the moonstones, all of it. She has tried it. And
all the medications, all of them.
She's thrown up on the things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. 5 years of cruising full time. I've tried literally everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. All right.
So sleep schedules were a challenge just because you get so tired and you're never quite 100% on your game because you're always just a little bit tired. We did the 4 hour on, 4 hour off for most of it, and it did work. It worked well for us, and you do get into a cycle, and you do get used to it. And we would take naps during the day, and this comes back to that implicit trust that you have in the other person as well. You really have to be able to trust that they've got this while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
If you're solo sailing, you just gotta sleep. I mean,
yeah, you're gonna go to sleep.
Yeah.
So sleep well.
Good luck.
You can do it.
You totally can do it.
People do it all the time.
The thing is, on watch out there,
nothing's there.
We never saw anything. Neither of us ever saw anything that was worth waking up the other person for.
Yeah.
The only reason we ever woke each other up was to make sail changes or well, that was pretty much it.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or no. Epic bioluminescence.
Oh yeah,
that one you'll wake them up for. Yeah,
incredible
like,
things to see.
Like dolphins swimming through the bioluminescence next to the boat.
Yeah.
Hello, wake me up for that. So yes, the other thing, the lack of communication.
Most of the challenges are mental, to be honest, because you've done so much preparation beforehand. You're ready. You're good to go. So
and the boat's good to go.
Yeah, and hopefully you know what you're doing. So the other mental challenge was what did you just say? I just lost my.
The anxiety that comes with lack of
I mean, people don't have this as much anymore because everybody's got Starlink or whatever. But apparently we're 90 years old and. All we had was a little sat phone
that you could text,
and texting could take a day to get to the person you were trying to reach.
So it was 160 character per text. If you sent more than 2 texts at a time, they'd come in a jumbled order, and then they couldn't make sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
When you sent your text, it took 10 to 30 minutes for them to receive the text, and then when they sent their response, another 10 to 30 minutes. So you're looking at, like, if everyone's like on the ball, 20-minute minimum, maybe an hour minimum, to be like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Not much.
So, and then we did have days where like our texts just didn't send.
Yeah.
And we never heard from our families and we were freaking out. So it's just that challenge of being alone. It's being without that communication that we're all so used to, I would put that also under a joy. No Facebook.
Oh, no spam calls.
No social media, none of that. And that was actually wonderful to just disconnect and remember why we're all here. Which I could get into that, but we won't. It becomes very philosophical. But it's just a really nice. What is he eating?
Sorry, 1 second.
40. It's really nice to disconnect from society that way, especially in this age of constant information being thrown at your face. We happened to be in the middle of the Atlantic during the presidential election, which was really great for us because we didn't deal with the onslaught of like all the media that hits you in the face when you're going through a presidential election now. So it was a really, really nice respite from all of that. Now.
There's a question of
yes.
The ocean isn't littered with containers. The containers sink.
Mm-hmm.
They actually.
We weren't too worried about hitting containers. I mean, that's a really scary thing. Yeah. It's a very scary concept, and it has happened.
So
but...
I saw that movie, All Is Lost, and I was like, I'm gonna die from a container. What are we gonna do? So I looked into it extensively. There's little galvanic, pretty much zincs mounted in the corners on them that when they get wet in the salt water, they corrode away really quickly, like really, really quickly. And then the thing lets out its air and sinks. So the only way it can possibly float is if it's like full of styrofoam or air bubbles. Like that's pretty much it. The container weighs something like 80,000 pounds and it just sinks. So not really, but there is a lot of debris and crap floating out there.
There's a lot of trash.
Yeah.
We saw it mostly on our way over to Europe because we had those days of being becalmed and because we had so little wind. We saw lots of trash float by us every single day, and it was incredibly upsetting.
So another question, Tom Parsons asked, what was your schedule for how long between horizon scans when on watch? Mm-hmm. It depends on your speed. So the horizon is about, where we're sitting, it's about 5 miles away. So if you're going 5 knots, in a half hour, you're now halfway to the horizon. And we usually weren't going 5 knots, so we had plenty of time.
We were going 5 knots on our way back.
Yeah, on the way back, we were watching it a lot more. Now, ships and stuff that are taller than the horizon, you'll see them like 20, 25 miles away.
But we didn't see a single ship.
Yeah.
The entire time.
Yeah. We did close to shore. It's not that we couldn't see, not that we didn't know what ships looked like, and that's why we never saw it.
We were always watching.
Yeah.
One of us was really always watching, no matter what, during day or night.
All right. So Tom Lane Tatum, it depends on your speed. I think. Well, he's asking like if you can see 17 miles, how long does it take you to get there? Well, your speed.
Yeah.
So if you're going 17 knots, congratulations, you'll be there in an hour.
Yeah. You just calculate.
Yeah. Okay.
Miles per hour, basically,
yep.
But it's knots.
Knots, yeah.
So we kind of covered night sailing. What we did on watch was be really vigilant, but also, I mean, you'll go insane if you don't have something keeping you awake. So what I did was I downloaded a bunch of podcasts before I left,
and then I would listen to the same podcast. That way we would have conversation.
Actually, it was great. Yeah, because you really do run out of things to talk about.
Like, did you see that flying fish? Yep.
I mean, we would go hours and hours without talking. And, you know, I was reading my books. He was staring out into the distance.
I knocked it out.
And you just learn to be alone together. You know, it's something that's really cool about it. Yeah. But it is nice to have topics of conversation. So you listen to the same podcasts every night, and then you can discuss said podcasts.
Yeah. Now, another thing, the anti-pirate lights.
Mm-hmm.
So with night sailing. So there's areas where there are pirates. It's the coast of Africa, pretty much.
Yeah, we were off of Western Sahara, and we were terrified of pirates, so we overcompensated.
Yeah, so Western Sahara, at the time, the government website said don't get within 100 miles of our coast because the pirates will get you. So we stayed 400, and then we turned off AIS, we took down our radar reflector, and then we turned on a dim set of nav lights. So they were visible just 2 miles. So that way, if a boat's going to hit you, they'll know in about 2 minutes before they hit you. So, not very useful. But we did see another cargo ship, like a tanker, and normally you see their lights from like far away. And we were kind of close to him, and his lights were very dim. So I think that they were doing the same thing. I don't know if it's legal to do that. So I don't know if they admit that they do that.
And this was not our ocean crossing, though. This was just going from Madeira to Cape Verde.
Yeah.
Because when you're ocean crossing, you don't. There are no pirates.
Yeah. Like no one's sitting out there in a mothership waiting for you to come through like it's water.
Yeah.
You don't worry about the smokers.
Another good question. Did you route plan to avoid commercial shipping lanes?
Yes.
We did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's why we didn't see any ships.
Yeah. So go to it's the one that tracks all the boats, the AIS tracking one.
Mm-hmm.
Marinetraffic.com, I think, is the website. You see the route, just know it. You can Sharpie it on another chart or something, and then try not to be in it. That's all.
And our last little tidbit about night sailing, because night sailing is a topic that freaks people out if they've never done it. And if you're crossing the Atlantic, you're going to do it a lot. And so you really need a plan with your partner or partners if you're doing it. Just always have one other person watching you if you go on deck.
Yeah. So
you're in the cockpit, you're clipped in, which we'll talk about later, no matter what. But if you need to go on deck to change a sail, if something's luffing, if the weather changes and you need to drop a sail, wake the other person up and make sure they're watching while you go on deck.
Yeah, I did do that one time, and I was going up, and I was just real quickly, just like adjusting the luff rope. Not the luff rope, the foot rope, like super minor. And
I happened to wake up.
She happened to wake up, looked into the cockpit because she had a nightmare that I fell off and like at night and was like lost at sea, and she's alone on the boat. And she wakes up, she looks in the cockpit, and it's empty. And I'm up on the bow, and I just hear, and I'm like,
I was just screaming his name.
I just heard screaming, and I'm like, no. She caught me.
So
So don't do that.
Always
Nice.
let the other person know you're going up. Have them drearily watch you. You come back. They go back to sleep.
Yeah,
it's
they don't have to fully wake up.
It's worth it. Just
yeah.
So now we're gonna get into the gear that we believe you need to cross an Atlantic. Not all the commercial gear that everyone says you need. What you actually need. And
it's a short list.
It's not that much. I mean, I think that the most important thing to mention right off the bat is safety gear. So what we carried, I have no regrets about any safety gear we carried.
And some of it we never used, thankfully.
Most of it you never use, and that's the idea. But it's really important to have a life raft that is has been checked and what is the
Serviced.
Serviced. Yeah.
It's up to date and not expired.
Yes, unexpired life raft. We got the one for 4 people.
Yes, you also want to get the smallest life raft for the crew you have, because it'd be really nice to sit in like a condo life raft while you wait for rescue that holds like 20 people, and it's just 2 of you. You got lots of space to stretch out. But then if there's bad weather, you're being flung around this thing. So the idea is your body is like hold yourself together.
The other thing is it's really heavy. I mean, just to get it out and deploy it, it's super heavy. So if there's only 2 of you, it's much better to have a smaller life raft.
Yeah, so ours was a 4-person because that's as small as they came.
Yeah. And also we thought we would have crew.
Yeah. So we need 3 people space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have the life raft, and then the other most important thing ever is your life jackets, and you need to make sure they're rated for ocean, and that they have a tether. And so we went to West Marine and got the West Marine brand boingy yellow tether.
And that sucker's by Kong.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's at West Marine. Get the double tether, because that way you never unclip. So if the weather's fine, you unclip, clip to the next thing, like no one cares. you don't even need to be clipped. But you do it because it's good practice and it's safe.
Yes.
But if it's really bad weather, and I've had times where it was like, I will die if I am unclipped.
Yes.
So you keep yours clipped, you clip the second one to a thing, you unclip the first one. And then,
so you're always clipped into something at all times.
Yeah.
And you have to really be sure about what you're clipping into. Because
So
if you're getting ripped off the boat by a wave, water is incredibly powerful. Like, you don't understand how powerful water is until you've been in a storm. But you really do need to be clipped into something that isn't going to be ripped off with you.
Yeah, so strong points, and know where they are, and know how to get to them.
Yes.
And make sure they're always clear.
So 100% of the time be clipped in, even if it's calm weather, because you never know if a rogue wave is going to come or a whale is going to like tip over your boat.
So we got those.
Yeah.
The EPIRB, a ditch bag that already has a bunch of water bottles in it, because that's not the time to be like, what do I need?
Yeah, things to put in your ditch bag. Your EPIRB goes in your ditch bag.
Yes.
Whistle, that dust stuff that you...
Yeah, the orange smoke that goes in the water.
Yeah, all the safety stuff. I mean, you can get a basic list of this stuff anywhere on the internet, but you put all that safety gear into your ditch bag so that it's all in one place. And if you need to ditch the boat really fast, you just grab that bag.
Yeah, we also had a week's supply of water bottles in the ditch bag.
Yes.
So, yeah, that, and then other stuff. Jack lines and chest high lifelines. Like, have them. And the jack lines, the ones that they sell are this nylon strap that's a webbing. And they say, don't have it out in the sun because the sun will decompose it. And then if you need it, it'll just break on you and then you die. So their recommendation is, if the weather's getting bad, run the jack lines now. It's like, no. The jack line's are already set. So we have 3-lay rope. And the reason they say not to use rope is if you step on it, it'll roll under your foot and then you'll fall. Just put it on shadow. But if you live on the boat and you're constantly out there, you know where it is. You just don't step on it. It's like you don't step on your sheets and roll underfoot and fall. So it's like, just have 3-lay, it can stand in the sun, and it's also stretchy. So if you do fall, it doesn't like burst your spleen when you like, so fun stuff.
AIS. AIS is actually a really important thing.
Yes.
And it's a big difference between our first crossing and our second. For both of them, we received AIS. Only for the second crossing did we decide to transmit AIS. And I will say that it was a game changer.
Yeah.
It's so important.
So receiving is like $800, and then transmitting, like 300. Receiving is cheap. Transmitting is $1,000 on top of everything else. So, when we first started, we had zero money. So we're like, we'll just receive. This will be fine. And when we'd see boats, like they'd be on a collision course with us, we'd receive their AIS signal, and then we'd radio them, and they'd always be like, where are you? And we'd have to give them the coordinates, and it was just, it was a lot involved. With the transmitting one, you'd see the boat, and you'd be like, oh, we're on a collision course, and then
the boat would see us clearly and turn.
So,
and it was also just a really nice peace of mind. You set your alarm to go off
ridiculously far away.
Whenever, wherever you feel most comfortable. We had ours set for 30 miles. If a ship was going to be within 30 miles of us, the alarm would sound. And I will say that it never sounded across the Atlantic. It sounded plenty along the coast of Africa and in Gibraltar. We set it for a smaller radius.
Yeah.
It was a really nice thing to have in the Mediterranean, I will say. Really nice, because it's super crowded in there.
Well, also like the Strait of Gibraltar, it took us days to get out of there because wind and current problems. And like when we'd be becalmed in there, you'd see all the ships, the traffic. We weren't in the lanes, at least. Like we were outside the separation scheme. But you'd see them coming along and then just all going around us. And you could see when they got our signal. It's like, yep, now they're turning. Oh, next one's turning.
Yeah, so AIS is just a must-have for peace of mind, but also for the safety of you and other boats. Does AIS transmit weather?
No. Whether you're monitoring.
Oh.
You can turn
Motoring.
Motoring. What? Oh.
Does AIS transmit whether you're motoring or not?
Oh yeah.
It tells you the speed everyone's going, and yes, it transmits constantly.
Yeah, it transmits all the time. Like we would, when we were anchored in the ICW, we'd leave the AIS on, so that way tugs going by would know that we're in an anchorage. Don't cut this corner close and hit us.
But the nice thing is, it I'm sorry if you said this. I wasn't listening. If you attach to it attaches to your phone, so you can see the speed everyone's going, where they're headed, and in what direction they're currently headed.
And who's going to pass on which side.
Yeah, it literally tells you everything about the boats that are on there, and then it tells them everything about you. So you have all the information.
It's so good.
You know whether they're motoring, you know whether they're under sail.
Well, it used to be that I preferred crossing with ships at night because I could see their nav lights and figure out, what are they doing. And by day, I'm like, I can't quite see, where's your bow? Which side am I looking at? Like, I couldn't tell. And it was tricky. And this was before AIS. And then with AIS, it's like, doesn't matter. Like, I know where you are before I even see you on the horizon. Like, we're totally fine. So
yay,
excellent.
AIS.
Yeah, worth the money. Water and water tanks. So we don't have a water maker. And you don't need a water maker. Just lots of tanks. And lots of multiple tanks, because if one of them gets contaminated.
This also depends on like what kind of boat you're crossing in. Some boats just don't have the tankage built in, so we recommend bladder tanks. Just add tankage, like wherever you can, because water makers, they're fantastic, and we know a lot of people who crossed with water makers and had no problems, but we also know a lot of people who crossed with water makers and had problems. And if your water maker goes out and you're relying solely on that water maker, you're screwed if it breaks. So just have a backup. If you have a water maker, great. Have backup.
Yeah, have the tankage.
We carry 200 gallons of water.
Did it.
And so we never ran out or even came close.
So water maker is literally the expression, bird in hand is better than two in the bush.
Right.
Like, have your tanks.
And we showered like once a week.
We smelled so bad. All right, another thing.
Monitor wind vane.
Yeah, okay. So with the ARC, they're like, get the hydrovane, because the hydrovane company paid a lot of money to be the one that they tell you to get. Get the monitor.
It doesn't work as well as the monitor.
Yeah.
Is just the plain truth.
In the instructions, it even says, in high winds, supplement with your electronic autopilot. And with the monitor, at 60 knots, we're like, no, we're going to heave to now. It's too much wind. We don't want to keep sailing, even though the monitor is still sailing. It's amazing.
The monitor wind vane is fantastic because it's totally hands-off unless the wind direction changes.
Then it steers your boats to the
you gotta adjust if you want to keep going in the same course.
Yeah.
And that's the only time you have to adjust. So you're watching your compass, you're watching the stars, you're making sure you're still going in the same direction. And as long as you are, the monitor is going to keep you on that course. It was so hands off. We never touched our wheel basically, which was fantastic.
It's monitor wind vane. That's the thing you need to have. All right.
And storm sails are also really important. So
and also,
you need to have sails equipped for all kinds of weather. We used our light air sail a lot of the way across to Europe, and on the way back to this side of things, we used our storm sail a lot.
We also use the storm sail a lot on the way over too.
For balance,
Yeah.
So storm sail, really important to have.
And light air sail.
Yes.
Yes. All right, other thing. So
backups.
The electronic thingies, chart plotter stuff, they're nice and all. Sextant, paper charts, and backup electronic thingies. So we had Navionics on 3 devices: my phone, an iPad that was really old, and the iPad that we currently use. So we had 3 sets of Navionics.
Navionics was our only electronic chart that we used, and it's all we needed the whole way. Like you buy the maps for where you're gonna be, and it's
so cheap,
super cheap,
for like $20.
And it tells you how fast you're going, and you don't want to do the route planning thing with it.
Yeah, it can't plot well for cross an ocean business.
Right. It's just going to take you straight.
Yeah. But you just, it's great. Just Navionics is what you need. You don't need anything else.
Yeah, you don't need these fancy gadgets, giant monitors with the routes and everything, and
you can tell we're very techy and have a lot of experience with these things. Like, you literally don't need them.
Yeah.
You can have them. They're pretty.
We never at any point wished we had anything other than Navionics.
Yeah.
Ever. On either of our crossings.
Yes. Like, say you're in a bad storm coming out in the middle of the ocean. Who cares where you're going? There's a storm. You see it. Turn away from it.
Right. Avoid it.
Yeah. And then later, like, all right, where are we? All right, I'm back this way again.
Yes.
Like, that's it. You don't, there's no
as long as you have Navionics and a compass, you're good.
Yeah. Yep. And then the paper charts and sextant.
Yes.
Because if the Navionics, like, say all your phones fall over or you run out of power in the boat, whatever.
You get hit by lightning, all your electronics die.
Yep. Now, you know, paper charts.
Paper charts.
Figure out where you are.
Before you leave, learn how to use a sextant, learn how to use paper charts, just have the basic knowledge. We even have videos about that.
Yeah. Now, in the video, so many people are like, how does this number come to? Just go with it.
Yeah.
It makes the math easy. I made the video to be an easy how to use the sextant, not how I figured out how to use the sextant. Because the how to use the sextant is like kind of complicated. I'm looking at it like, this math could be very simplified if you just make this number instead.
So just have manual backups for everything in case your electronics die, because a lot of people they pay all this money to get all this expensive electronic equipment, and then it dies and they're lost at sea.
And frustrated.
So
I feel like the frustration is what really kills them. So
yes. Pilot charts we talked about.
Pilot charts, have them. They're so good. They're free. So
okay, we talked about that. Whoops.
Okay,
weather.
Okay, so as you can tell, we're exceedingly techy. We do not have Iridium Go or Predict Wind. I did a video about it, and it's pretty and it's nice. If you have zero idea what you're doing, it'll help you. But honestly, if you have zero idea what you're doing, maybe don't cross the ocean until you do know weather, because it's good to have.
Very quickly, to circle back, was keeping your phones and tablets charged annoying? No.
There's nothing else
just
going on.
Plug it in.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. Yeah.
I
mean, we were producing power with our solar
and regen,
which we'll talk about.
Yes.
But yeah, just plug them in, and they had good battery life.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yep.
And it was just a cycle of what was plugged in all the time.
So the Iridium Go Predict Wind setup, it costs, I think it was over $1,000 for the thing to set it up, and then in order to pay for it, like every month, it was like $400 or something. It was like really expensive, and it wasn't very accurate, because it's only as accurate as the current weather data is, which isn't very accurate. So you're using imperfect data, which is going to give you an imperfect result, and there's no way around it. So why pay all the money for imperfect when you could just look at the sky?
So I mean, our recommendation is to educate yourself on weather patterns and weather reading and weather predicting before you leave. Because this is the biggest thing people pay for the ARC, I feel like, is that they're not confident in their own abilities to read the weather. And so they need that constant update. The problem is it's mostly inaccurate what you get out there. And we were getting weather facts.
Yeah, we started with weather facts on a single sideband. It was such a pain.
It was so inaccurate. It was kind of, it like became a joke.
Yeah.
And so it's really not going to help you. You really need to be able to just look at the sky and look at it's very basic. The clouds make these formations, and they tell you exactly what to expect in the next few days.
Yeah, and also, like, it's a binary system. It's either good or bad. So if you're in good weather and you see different clouds coming, it's going to be bad. And if it's bad weather and you see different clouds coming, it's hopefully going to be better, not worse. But, like, that's it. Like, it's just...
I would say, I mean, the theme of this whole gear talk really is just be prepared if all your electronics die.
Yeah.
Or if something isn't working right, or you're receiving bad information. Just, you need to arm yourself with the knowledge beforehand.
Be self-sufficient.
Yeah, in order to confidently cross an ocean, because it's a dangerous thing to do. Like, this is not a light thing, crossing the ocean. It's, people die, you know, but it doesn't have to be that way. It can, if you're armed with the correct knowledge, and both of you are, because you never know what's going to happen to the other person.
Yeah, like everyone always asks me about weather stuff. She knows her weather. There was one time I was playing with some fishing gear, and
I was like,
May's like, "What's that?"
I didn't say what's that. I said, look, we're gonna have weather.
Yeah, and I'm like,
let's get the storm sail up.
Yeah, I was playing with the fish. And,
so you know, it's just
trust your partner.
It's just important to know before you go what to expect and what to look for, and you'll just have so much more confidence when you're out there if you're already prepared with that knowledge. So it just makes everything a lot more at ease, and you never feel helpless ever, which, I mean, that's the biggest fear, isn't it? Helplessness.
Yeah.
So.
That looked like a question.
Predict wind sounds like when people go out in the wilderness thinking their cell phone will save them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyone know where you can get copies of length of day navigation tables?
Yes, they are in the nautical almanac. Oh, you need a nautical almanac to use a sextant. That's a minor detail. It's very important. Sorry. So in there it has all of it. It has sunrise, sunset, and so from that you can be like, well, the sun rose at 7:14. We're probably at this latitude and longitude, probably.
So we're gonna get into now the discussion about the electric motor, and crossing the Atlantic with an electric motor.
No, it's not the Farmer's Almanac. It literally is Nautical Almanac.
Yes.
That's it. There's also an HO or HB 249 or between it. Another book that's cool, but the Nautical Almanac is easier to use, and it's got it all in there. Has the star charts, everything. That's the one we use. And also they're dated like per year. You don't have to get the new one. We crossed back in 2021?
2020?
Somewhere around there?
2020.
2020? Oh no, Marty farted.
He's been farting the whole time.
So bad. So anyway, we crossed with a 3 and or 4 year old nautical almanac, and it was fine. Like your position's slightly off, but it's close enough to get across an ocean and make it to the port you're aiming for.
Yes.
Okay.
So
the motor.
This comes up. This is like one of the hottest debates on our channel. Is like people telling us that it is unsafe to cross the Atlantic with an electric motor, and we disagree heavily. And a lot of that is because of this theme that keeps coming up, where you should know what you're doing before crossing the ocean and not rely on things like a motor to get you across, because motors can break.
And also
and fuel can run out.
Yeah, think about how much fuel you need to motor 3,000 miles, say, roughly, you know?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, motors are really nice backups. If we had had a diesel motor during our days of being becalmed, we would have just turned it on and gone, and we would have missed all the fun nature that we saw. And
another issue.
Yes.
People that are becalmed and then turn on their diesel tend to move at the same speed as the weather.
So they become becalmed for days and days and days because they're moving with the system, with the high pressure system that they're stuck in. So if you just let the system pass over you, the wind comes back, always.
Yeah, so we were becalmed for 4 days one time. The wind came back, and then we were going like 6 knots. It was... Yeah.
So electric motors are not meant to take you across an ocean. They don't have the longevity.
No,
well, they have the longevity. They don't have the range. And even if your entire boat is covered in solar, you're not going to make it.
No, they've done it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they did it with the solar catamaran. It can be done, but practical. On a cruising sailboat, it's not going to happen.
That's news to me.
So I've been following it because it's really awesome, the battery technology they used on it. But anyway, yes.
So,
Sorry.
really big difference between our two crossings was also that, like, the first one, we talked about this with the ICW last week, we had a lot less range in our motor than the second one. But honestly, like, it didn't make a difference because we never motored the whole way. Like, we just...
Yeah. We used the motor in regen a lot as a drogue.
Yes.
That we could turn on or off depending on the weather conditions.
And the regen was great to fuel our fridge.
Yeah, it powered the fridge. So we had 100 watts, two 50-watt panels.
Mm-hmm.
And the panels were physically present, but when we got to the Azores and we're taking one of them off to replace them with 150-watt panels, so triple the size, it turns out that one of them had corroded through completely and was disconnected. So we actually only had 50 watts of solar when we crossed the ocean. So
but it didn't affect us.
We ran completely off regen because regen was cranking out like 4 amps.
So we have hydro regen, which we talked about. It's really awesome in the ocean because you're getting the speeds and you're going for the length of time necessary to actually merit it.
Yeah, well, I mean, cranking out 4 amps and 12 volt. It was cranking out, like, say, an amp at 48 volts. So it steps down to 12 volt, quadruples. So 4 amps. In 10 hours, you just produced 40 amps of power. And I just gotta see what that is.
So when it comes to, like, charging your stuff, you know, it's really nice to know that you're making power.
Yeah.
And yes.
Well, yeah, that's 480 watts
Mhm.
that you made just by sailing. And that's in 10 hours. So, like, in a day, you're going to make over a kilowatt every day. Like, so much power comes out of that thing.
Kind of the goal when you're doing long passages is to hit 100 nautical miles in a 24-hour period. That's what you can ask for. If you're doing a really good day, you're hitting 100. On our way over to Europe, we averaged 80 miles a day, and nautical miles a day. And when we were coming back, we actually did hit the 100 mark and go over a lot of days. So that meant that we were producing a lot of power, especially on the way back, because it's the amount of power you produce is directly correlated with the speed that you're going, because it's your propeller that's spinning.
Yeah. Well, when we were going over, we'd see it making like an amp at 48 volt, and coming back, we saw it get up to like 6 amps.
Yeah.
So that's 24 amps and 12 volt. That's a lot of power coming in.
So it was really good. I mean, regen is a fantastic thing to have. And it's a great reason that the electric motor is so cool when you're crossing the Atlantic, because you're just producing your own power as you go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also figure if you had diesel and you motored and you run out of fuel and you're in the middle of the ocean, now what?
Yeah.
Like
there's that your fuel, you get a leak in your jerry cans leak, you know.
Get water in the tank. Like, just
not to mention just having jerry cans all over your deck. Like, it's just
it's how you spot the Americans, though.
Yeah, it's not safe, and it's annoying.
It's a lot of weight up high. Like, there's so many reasons that you don't want to do that, and
then motor maintenance in general. Like, a lot of people. So when we crossed the Atlantic the first time, we arrived on the same day as this other guy.
Oh, yes.
And we had taken 26 days, and we thought, oh man, like, we did have a slow crossing. There wasn't much wind. He had taken 40 days because his motor died.
Mm-hmm. So he wasn't able to motor, therefore it took him longer.
We were in the same conditions, but he didn't know how to sail properly, I guess.
Or weather out or something.
Or whether he was stuck because his motor died, because he was completely just motoring across the Atlantic. And we had kept going and cut the trip in half because we were sailing. And so this is not to say that all people with diesel motors just rely so heavily on their motors that they don't know how to sail, but it is one of those crutches that people tend to fall back on.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that crutch to fall back on, it forces you to really know what you're doing out there, and that's pretty much
Yeah, you
invaluable.
hear the expression like, "Oh, the winds are light, fire up the Iron Genoa."
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, get your lighter sails and let's start, negotiating with the wind, see where we're going to be going. And then also when you arrive at places, the tide. We need to arrive on the right tide. So I learned how to work with tide tables and calculate the tide in places, and what would be the current at these different tides. And like when we went to Suriname, like we had to anchor in the river, so we had to arrive on a certain tide, and that place, since no one goes there, there were no tide charts, no current, like nothing. So I had to like do the math.
But that being said, like our motor, we arrived at the mouth of the Suriname River, and then we had to motor for 12 miles.
Oh no, it was more than that.
It was more than 12 miles.
It was far. I think it was like, it took
We had
us
to
2 days
motor,
to get out.
yeah, we had to motor a long way up the river,
Yeah.
and we had plenty of motor capacity to make it up the river, and
but we went
everything
with
was
the current.
fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's a thing. We didn't, because some people, they get there, well, actually everyone else gets there, and we're talking about, oh, if you're lucky, you'll get here and you'll just motor and be here in like 12 hours. If you're unlucky, you're going to be the whole day just motoring forever against this current. It's going to use up all your diesel. It's like, or you anchor and you wait for the current to be right, and then you go when the current's going to take you, and you get, 3 miles out of it. But it's just that. So yeah, if you're in the ocean and your diesel runs out, or you have an issue with your diesel fuel, you're done. If you're electric on the ocean, your electric runs out, just wait.
You're going to create more power.
Yeah, and then you'll be able to sail again, or motor as needed.
People's biggest fear with the electric motor and crossing an ocean is storms and not being able to outrun the storms. We hear that all the time. What if you get stuck in a storm and you can't outrun it? I hate to tell you, but with a diesel motor, you're not very likely to outrun that storm either.
They're huge.
That you really need to just know how to handle a storm. And even better than that, you need to know how to predict that a storm is coming and avoid said storm altogether. And you don't necessarily need to outrun the storm to avoid it. You see it when it's so far out there that you can see what direction it's coming in, and you can adjust course accordingly, and you'll never touch the storm.
Yeah, and also like this goes with knowing weather. There is this dangerous side and the navigable side of a storm. So, pick the correct side to go on. Like all these factors that like come in that, the diesel's not going to teach you like, oh, that guy, go to the right. Like,
yeah. So, I mean, I think the really important thing is also to just have a boat that can handle a storm. If that's what you're really scared about, is storms. Our boat is very heavy displacement, full keel, and we've had our share of storms, and it wasn't, it was very uncomfortable, but it was not scary.
Yeah.
Because we knew that we had a boat that could handle a storm. And so if you have an electric motor, it really is also great to have a boat that is really hardy and well built and heavy displacement.
Yeah.
So that's just something else to take into consideration if you're crossing the Atlantic with an electric motor.
One other thing that I added here, because we get asked this all the time. So we have synthetic rigging, and I get asked all the time, what about lightning? What's going to happen if your boat gets hit by lightning? Well, the short answer for synthetic rigging is you're screwed. It's shot. It's going to fry it, it's going to burn it off, and then you're not going to have any rigging holding your mast up. So that sucks, which is why we carry a spare spool of Dyneema. That is the answer to what happens if you get hit by lightning with Dyneema. It's gone. Okay? I know it. I know that. I'm not hiding that fact. It's burned. It's gone. Yeah. Now, if you have steel rigging and get hit by lightning, everything is also gone. You're screwed all the ways. Boats don't survive lightning.
Don't get hit by lightning.
Yeah, no.
But it's so rare.
Yeah, you're out in the ocean.
Mhm.
You are the tallest object on the face of the planet at that time. You're gonna get hit by lightning, but there is no lightning.
We never experience lightning in a storm.
Yeah, you don't see lightning out on the ocean.
Mm-mm.
You'll see lightning in the cloud, but you won't see the bolts that come down and hit ground. Like, it just doesn't happen. So, yeah, that. So
and I will say, like, storms in general, just like, if you're a long-term cruiser sailor, you're going to have a storm. You're going to be in a storm at some point. And it doesn't have to be when you're crossing the ocean. It can be at any point. We never experienced a super crazy storm while crossing the Atlantic. I will say we experienced a storm during our second kind of journey across the Atlantic, where we were between Azores and Portugal. We were in a storm like the whole time, and it was really terrible. Again, we knew what we were getting into, and we just did it anyway. But I'll take a moment to plug our video about storm tactics, and it's a really good video, guys. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. I think we call it Storm Tactics.
Yes. I strongly believe that's the title.
But it's a video all about what to do in a storm, how to survive a storm, what not to do in a storm, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And your diesel's not going to save you.
No.
Knowing what sails to put up and how to keep balanced and upright is going to save you. And having things like somebody mentioned in the comments, like a storm anchor.
Oh, like a parachute anchor?
Parachute anchor and a drogue and things like that. Those are going to save you, not a diesel motor. That's it.
Yep.
Storm tactics. But you really, like I said, storms shouldn't be your number one fear when you're crossing the Atlantic, because you're going to cross at a good time because you've weather routed.
Yes. So, all right. So we just got asked, once you get your Albert 30 rebuilt, do you feel that it will be as safe as your bigger boat, even though it's smaller? Yes.
Yeah, it'll be as safe. It just won't be as comfortable.
Yeah, it's going to weigh like a third.
So
it's going to move faster in the sea. Mm-hmm. Like, it'll get tossed around faster, but it's still full keel, and it's going to become a cutter and all the things.
Yeah. It'll have all the same safety features, and smaller boats aren't necessarily less safe than bigger boats. It's just what your boat is equipped with. Also,
think about it. If a bigger boat gets hit by the same wave, more of the wave hit that boat. So the boat has to be stronger to withstand that. It's like you take a toothpick and it's really small and you go breaking it until you get to the tiniest little bit of a toothpick left and you just can't break it anymore. Is that tiny bit stronger than the whole toothpick?
Yes.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So that's it. So like you can be super tiny and be subjected to the same force and survive it, as opposed to something that's bigger, so you'd think it would be better. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that's that.
It'll just be less comfortable, and I'll be more seasick. It's gonna be great.
All right, so some conclusions.
So in conclusion, crossing an ocean is an amazing thing to do. Everyone should do it. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Just be prepared, and be enough afraid to over prepare, because preparation is probably the best thing that you can do.
Yeah, it's a healthy dose of fear makes you safe.
Yes.
Like, think about it. Like, if you're walking on the edge of a cliff and you have zero fear, you're like, la da da da, and you fall off and you die. Not great. Now, if you're scared of falling off and you're holding on to the side of the wall, well, you might hopefully not fall off and die.
Or you have the gear that's going to catch you if you fall.
There we are.
Which is a much better metaphor.
Yeah. But you were scared of falling, so you got the gear ahead of time. Yes. So that way you survive a fall.
Crossing the ocean both ways was probably the most rewarding thing that we've ever done in our entire lives. other than what's happening now. It was an incredible experience both ways. And if I had to choose a favorite crossing, I'd probably choose the first one just because it was more comfortable. And we had more beautiful days of sailing. And the second one ended with our boom falling off.
Yeah.
And just that feeling of seeing land, like it's just such an emotional. The whole thing is a very emotional experience.
Yeah,
it's
just
really
really worth experiencing in your life.
Nothing can ever top it.
Yeah,
it's the coolest thing ever, and it's awesome bragging rights, and it's just to yourself, like just to be able to say I did that. It's like a really cool thing.
Like stuff that's used to stress me out in daily life. Now I look at it, I'm like,
it puts everything into perspective, and you just hope that you can hold on to that and remember that when life gets tough, you know, you overcame a huge challenge, and it was really, really cool. And so yeah, it's a challenge, but I'd say the joys outweighed the challenges so much. Even the discomforts and everything. It was just a really cool experience. So if you have any further questions that we haven't gotten to, please leave them in the comment section, and we will look at the comment section and answer them with our little fingers rather than our voices. And thank you guys for being here. Can you think of anything else to add?
Not really. People are asking about catamarans. I have zero experience on catamarans. So
that's just a different topic.
Yeah, and someone said it well, that's a completely different animal.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have friends who did it in a catamaran, and
they were fine.
Yeah, they're fine. Catamarans are really tippy. I would say catamarans are great for Pacific crossings.
Right, that's what the ancient Pacific people did it in.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you want to do an ocean crossing in a catamaran, Pacific would be great for you.
Now this is coming from us having never sailed on the Pacific. So ask people on the Pacific.
Yeah. It's a longer ride, so the comfort of the catamaran is great, and it's a calmer ride, so you're less likely to tip over, which is the fear of catamarans.
Yeah, it's because they don't tip back.
They don't come back.
Yes. But yeah, so it was awesome.
Yes.
Do your research ahead of time. Learn how to do everything yourself. That way you don't need any outside help, because when you're on the boat, you are alone on the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And then learn from your mistakes. A big thing that we would do after every maneuver, whether it went well or went horribly, is we do a little recap. What worked, what didn't work, what led to problems, what led to successes, how can we make it better next time? And we just did that all the time. And it was really informative, and along the way we got really, really good at doing a lot of things. We carry that over to now.
Yes.
Like completely.
It's how we live our daily lives. It's really great.
Yeah, it's a little recap. What worked, and how can we make it better next time?
Okay, guys. Take a moment to like the video if you haven't already.
Also, check out our shirts.
Oh yeah, check out our shirts. They're available on Teespring. There's a link under all of our videos.
Yes.
And
it says merchandise.
Yes. So we love you all. We'll see you next week for our next live video. So stay tuned to find out what that's going to be about.
Bye.
Bye.
I can be old here and hit the button and talk while I'm doing that.